Saludos, buenos días. Gracias por estar conectado. Hi everybody, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to call my partner of the project. My name is Nicolás Cartagena. I am a state coordinator from SARE. I'm co-director of this project with Dr. Julia O'Halloran. And I want to say, Julia, come on.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Nicolás. Welcome, everybody, to our workshop, Soil Health Workshop. Today, we're going to have four great presentations. First of all, I would like to thank our partners in Florida Organic Growers. And that we have this project is sponsored between Florida Organic Growers and NIFA, just with no other additional interruptions. Let's begin with the workshop. Nicolás.
The first presentation that we are going to be presented is in charge of Soeli Rivera, and she is from Arte, Suelo, and Ser. Soeli.
Thank you, Nicolás. Good morning, everyone. As Nicolás mentioned, my name is Soeli Rivera Ocasio, and I'm really happy to be here talking about one of my favorite topics, soil health. Okay, now. I am a soil scientist and a biologist, and currently the director of Arte Suelo Ser. Regarding Arte Suelo Ser, we are a non-profit established in 2020 that integrates soil science within art, humanities, and social and natural science. Our mission is to educate about the relevance and the importance of soils in a culturally responsive teaching approach, so we can understand why soils are really important for our human well-being and also ecosystem services. Through the morning, we will be talking a lot about soil health, so I would like to start with a definition. And NRCS defines soil health as the continued capacity of soils to function as a vital living ecosystem to sustain not only plants, but also animals and humans. Sometimes we see that people tend to mix definition about soil health with soil fertility and soil quality, so I would like to go deeper in details to explain the difference. Historically, soil science were more concerned about soil fertility to improve crop production, so science were more focused on determine how improve nutrient availability and also how plants uptake these nutrients. However, as the science was advancing, we recognized that we could not only look for nutrient availability, we also need to consider how is the architecture of soils to provide those nutrients. So then comes the concept of soil quality, where take in consideration soil physical properties such as soil structure. So then nutrients could be available through the soil profile to nutrients. And then as we grow in the body of knowledge, we recognize that soils are more than substrates. Soils are living ecosystems, so we need to consider the biology of soils, and then is when comes soil health. So soil health considers not only the physical and chemical property, but also the dynamic of biological components, so we can see soils as a complex functional system. So we can define soil health from a conceptual perspective. However, then comes the question, how do we measure soil health? For that, we need to go back certain steps and see that soils provide certain services, such as food production. So to be able to produce food, soils need to perform certain functions, for example, plant growth support. And when we consider these functions, there is enable some soil processes, for example, organic matter decomposition. And for those processes, we have certain properties or indicators that will enable us to evaluate how is the soil performing regarding soil health. So regarding soil health indicators, we can use them as a proxy to determine how is performing soil according to those services that we want. One of the programs that we have in Arte Suelo Ser is called Soil Health for One Health. One Health is a multisectorial approach that aims to balance and optimize the health of people, but also recognizing that it's connected to the health of animals, plants, and the environment. We cannot see them as an isolated system. We need to see them interconnected. However, soil was overlooked regarding this because it was more related to an approach of zoonotic disease or veterinary approaches. But now, in the last decade, we have been seeing that soil is taking a more important role regarding One Health, because we recognize that having healthy soils will be the foundation of having healthy ecosystem. So for that, I have this slide here that provides all the change that we need to consider to have a healthy ecosystem that start from the below ground. So we have a below ground biodiversity and healthy soils that will be fundamental to have soil healthy. And then this will promote having above ground biodiversity and healthy microbiome communities. With that, then we will have ecosystem health that will contribute to climate resilience, pathogen control, and nutrient-dense food. And then, as we go in the chain, then we will have a healthy and resilient human communities. So we can see that everything is connected, going from having healthy soils to having a more healthy environment and healthy communities. So we recognize that practice that support soil life also will enhance not only below ground but also above ground biodiversity, creating more resilient agricultural system and healthy people. One of the things that we have been always discussing is how carbon moves through the planet. And sometimes when we think about storing more carbon, we often think about forestry or the atmosphere. However, soil is one of the largest carbon reservoirs on planet, so we need to consider how we treat, how we manage the soils, because then it will contribute to having more CO2 in the atmosphere or not. And we need to understand that carbon in soils are very dynamic. For example, you can have the soil and in soil organic matter, you can have the carbon there, but also we need to consider that plants uptake carbon for their growth, and then it's everything like a circle. Then you will have a plant litter that will contribute again to the soil organic matter. One of the things that is very important regarding having healthy soils and how that sustains us all is that having a regenerative approach in agriculture have been found that will have a higher concentration of certain minerals and phytochemicals in crops. So we will be producing healthy crops, but also crops with more dense minerals and phytochemicals that will enable us to be more healthy. Through the project of the Soil Museum of the Caribbean, we aim to educate about the relevance of having healthy soils. So here is a QR code that you can use to visit later the museum. currently is a museum in English and Spanish, and this is an exhibition that includes several research results conducted in Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, and also in Florida, that will enable you to see how the dynamics of the soil are interconnected each other. So you can have a management practice that will enhance another soil property and so ever. In addition, one of the things that is very important is conducting benchmark soil health analysis, and the reasons are plenty. The first one is know where are you today. If you want to conduct and improve your soil health, then you need to know where are you standing today, what are the conditions of your soil, because otherwise you will not be able to conduct better management practices to improve that condition. The second one is measure change over time. If you have a result, then you conduct a management practice. You will be able, if you are improving or if you have still a certain limitation that you need to address. Also, we need to guide our management decisions. So with that, you will not be guessing regarding, oh, I see that I have this problem. It could be this or this or this. If you make soil health analysis, then you will be able to determine why are you conducting certain approach. Also, we need to recognize that our resources are limited. We don't have many to do all the management practices that we want. So in that, if you have the results of your soil health analysis, you can determine whether if some limitation have a priority versus another. And the last one is to demonstrate the impact and the outcomes. If you want to take decision over time, you need to have like a capacity to demonstrate why are you taking those steps. So in this way, I always emphasize the need to make analysis and also assessment that conduct and help you to guide through decisions. So one of the things that also I like to emphasize is the relevance of having soil organic matter. And it is not only about having quantity, it's also about having good quality. And this is because healthy soils depend on thriving microbial communities that regulate nutrient cycling, organic matter decomposition, and the ecosystem resilience. So here in this illustration, you can see that at the top of the soil food web, there is organic matter that enable to primary consumers and also decomposer to have the energy source, and then other organisms could thrive. So the first step of the change is having soil organic matter in good quality and quantity. So we say that soil organic matter is a cornerstone of soil health because it influences biological, chemical, and physical soil functions. And we will see now why it is the pillar key of having a healthy soil. So in this illustration, we have soil organic matter at the top, and then you can see that we have soil quality and health, and it will provide different functions. We say that soil organic matter provides far more than nutrients, and we can see here that we have nutrient functions that will have an impact on chemical fertility. Yes, and we will see later what that means. But also having soil organic matter will be able to have the habitability function that will improve the physical properties of the soil. And it is because we have a we need to have a good architecture of the soil so the soil can be able to provide the structure for roots to grow, to microorganisms to flow through the soil. So it is beyond chemical fertility. And the last one, we will see that having soil organic matter will have a better metabolic function, and this is related to biological fertility, because having that energy source will enable to microorganisms to thrive. And they are, I say, like the engine that are helping us to have better nutrient cycle in the soil. So as we go on, you will see that organic matter, it is really key for having healthy soils. And considering the different functions in the different areas, as we were mentioning, physical, chemical, and biological, if we talk about physical function, organic matter will have an impact on aggregate stability, because when organic matter decomposes, then you will have building, binding, complex solutions and particles that will enable soil particles like sand, clay, and silt to stick together. So then you will have a better stability of your aggregates. Also, it will help to have better water infiltration, as you have better aggregate stability that translates to having a better water infiltration. And this go then to having a better water holding capacity, because soil organic matter have the capacity to absorb more water than the weight that they contain. And this is also translated to having a better soil structure. As you have your particles together, then the soil will have a better soil structure, and then a better bulk density that will be related to having a reduced compaction. So we can see that it's like a cascade effects. Having good soil organic matter index will have and will impact the physical functions of the soil. And then in the chemical function side, when we have good concentrations or a good index of soil organic matter, then the nutrient cycling will be enhanced, because soil organic matter are pools of different cations and nutrients. So as the organic matter decompose, those nutrients will be released and then will be available for plants. Also, one of the properties of soil organic matter is that increase the cation exchange capacity, because it contains plenty areas of negative charge, so then it will be able to retain those cations that the plants need for the development. One of the other things that soil organic matter provide is pH buffering capacity. So if you have a soil with a lower pH, then it will help to increase, to rise that pH. Or if you have a soil with an alkaline pH, then adding compost or soil organic matter sources will help to decrease that pH. And last, as the name says, soil organic matter contains plenty carbon, so it is a source for carbon storage. So with that, we see all the impact, the benefits of having organic matter to have healthy soils in the physical and chemical dimension. If we go to the biological function, we will see that soil organic matter is the source of energy, of food for microbial activity. So then it will help to having those organisms that will help to suppress some disease, and I know that later on this topic will be discussed broadly. So then also having better soil organic matter will help to create these dynamics where we have mycorrhizal association that will benefit the plants, and also having earthworm activity. Because as we mentioned before, having soil organic matter, it is the first step of that food soil web, so will enable other types of organisms thrive in the soil ecosystem. So a comprehensive evaluation of soil health combines lab and with field-based assessment. And I always like to compare this as we are evaluating our health. And if you wake up certain morning feeling bad, instead just looking through your search engine like Google the symptoms to know what do you have, you go to the doctor, and then the doctor perform a physical evaluation. But also sometimes having only a physical observation, it is not enough. So then the doctor tell you to do some lab analysis or more deep studies. So the same thing happens with soil. We need both. We need observations that we can conduct in the field, but also we need lab analysis to tell us the whole story. So the lab analysis will provide you diagnostic information. It will tell you what is happening, why it's happening, because you can see that the soil is naked, like sometimes plants are not growing, but then you cannot know the reason. It is because you have a low pH, you don't have enough nutrients. So then you will be guessing, but if you conduct a lab analysis, then you will have the whole picture to know why. But also, field assessment will reveal you how the system is functioning in real world. Because what will happen if you go to the doctor with lab analysis that are not from you, and then the doctor is not observing the people where those labs come from? It will not have the whole information. So the same thing happened with soils. You need to see the lab analysis, but also you need to take in consideration how it is performing in real world. Okay. Taking in consideration some lab analysis, one of the frameworks that you can use, and I am mentioning this, although there are another ones, but this is one of the most widely used in United States. It is the CASH model, that is the Comprehensive Assessment of Soil Health. And this analysis, it is good to analyze soil health because consider the three aspects that we already spoke. It considers the physical properties, the biological properties, but also the chemical properties. And one of the nice things is that they provide you the values, the results, to interpret each parameter, but also they provide you a score, and this score is based on the texture of the soil, because you cannot compare a parameter if you are evaluating the health of your soil. You cannot compare, for example, compaction, the result of compaction in a sandy soil versus the compaction results from a clay soil. It will be really different. So then they provide you this graphic where you can see the behavior of the soils according to soil textures, and then it will provide you a score. And then if you have 20, you know that you need to increase certain points to be in a good position for that parameter. So allow you to take decision on what parameters are more in limitation or in worse conditions, so then you can have a better approach to select certain management practices to improve that property. So then this is an example of lab analysis. The important thing is that take in consideration the 3 aspects, not only one. So it will be very different than having a soil fertility package lab analysis. And then the second one, it is making field observation. And one of the approaches that you can use is using this data sheet, the Cropland in-field soil health assessment that was created by NRCS. This is available through internet, and it's very simple with 11 field indicators provide you information about certain soil health index, and it will allow you to see if you have certain concerns, so then you can choose what management practices will be able to help you to improve your soil health index. So I can go over all the indicators, but it will take plenty time. But the good thing is that goes from physical, chemical, and also biological properties to provide you a whole framework according to the soil health framework. So regarding evaluating soil health, it is not only about having a score. It's recognizing what are the limitations, what are the strengths, and what areas do you need to improve, and then can choose certain management practices that will help you to have healthy soils. So as a conclusion, healthy soils sustain healthy planets, healthy ecosystem, and healthy communities, and caring for soil is an investment in our future. So this is my information in case you want to contact me in the future, and also the address of the museum where you can see the exhibition that I mentioned a couple slides ago. So with that, I take time for questions or later. Okay, perfect.
All right, I wanted to say thank you to Soelis for excellent presentation and good information that provide to us. And now I want to say to the second speaker, Dr. Edric Marrero, to come here and present. He's a partner from NRCS. Edric. ¿Tienes el micrófono? Te pones este. Te ayudo. Checa, a ver.
It's okay? Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Nicolás, for the invitation to be around, to be today here presenting with you all. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about agronomic conservation practices that can be planned to increase the soil health, okay? So we'll be talking a little bit about what we do as a conservation agency. We will be talking a little bit about what's the conservation planning process and how do we use the conservation planning process to develop a conservation plan for soil health in different settings. I will be presenting some examples on coffee and citrus, and I hope you like it. So NRCS is a conservation agency that was established around 90 years ago in 1935. And our mission is to deliver conservation solutions so our agricultural producers can protect the natural resources and feed a growing world. The world population is increasing rapidly, but we need to feed more people with the same resources, the same soil, the same water. So how can we do this? Well, regenerative agriculture, conservation agriculture is a key tool to do that, okay? Because if we do not conserve our natural resources, if we deplete our water, our soils, we will not be able to do that. So our vision is a world of clean and abundant water, healthy soils, resilient landscapes, and thriving agricultural communities through voluntary conservation. All the conservation that we put on the land is through a voluntary process. So we provide guidance of technical conservation practices to farmers or landowners, but if they don't want to put them into their land, we cannot do more, because we need to them decide if they want to engage and implement the conservation practices. We do that in the Caribbean area through 8 field offices. Here's the map of the Caribbean area. We provide services to United States Virgin Islands. Our main office is in St. Croix, but we also provide services to St. Thomas and St. John. Then we have Caguas field office, Corozal field office, Utuado field office, Arecibo field office, San Sebastian field office, Mayagüez field office, and Juanadía field office. So we provide services to the whole Caribbean. So let's talk a little bit about soil health and conservation practices. So when we think about soil health and a conservation plan, we need to do several steps. You cannot do a soil health conservation plan without visiting the farm, without talking to the farmer. So the first step is to visit the farm, have a good conversation with the farmer. So when you go there, you cannot go there without time. You need to schedule your agenda to have quality time for that farmer and ask the farmers what are their objectives. And you need to have time to visit the whole farm, not just what the farmer tells you, but you as a technician, as a professional in agricultural science, you can see sometimes more things than what the farmer tells you, because farmer is there all days. But sometimes when you are all days in your office, you miss some details. So it's good to bring other persons to your operation, because they will see things that you are so accustomed to see everything that you don't look at those. Then you gather all the information, you go back to your office or your place of work, and then start a process of analyzing all those information. And based on those analyses, you will formulate alternatives, evaluate those alternatives, and eventually develop a conservation plan. Okay? That 9-step process that we have been following for decades is what we call conservation planning. And we can divide those 9 steps in 3 phases. The first phase is go to the farm, identify problems, opportunities, determine what are the farmer objectives, and do a resource inventory. And this step is really important. So Eli was presenting before that if you want to improve your situation, you need to establish a benchmark condition. And based on that benchmark condition is that you will work on to see the progress. Or you can work on to see that it's not progressing what you thought that will function. And that is part of the conservation planning process. If what you plan to do is not working, you go back to the design board and start working again and looking for other alternatives to address that situation. Okay? So with that resource inventory, with those benchmark conditions that you establish, you will start a data analyzing process. With that data analyzing, you will use several tools, and we in NRCS are fans of tools, and we are always developing new tools. So you will evaluate those, you will start formulating alternatives, then evaluate those alternatives, and eventually make decisions. And in this process, you want the farmer to be a part of the process, because you do not want to develop a perfect conservation plan that the farmer cannot accomplish. So the farmer is a really important part of that process. Eventually, when you develop a conservation plan, you will start the third phase, that is the implementation and evaluation of that conservation plan. So when you go to a farm, this is a farm in Utuado, okay? And this is the farm road, and this is a steep cut in the land. So and that's me, right? I took that picture on purpose. I'm about 6 feet 1 inch tall, so this is really tall, okay? And somebody told the farmer, hey, you should plant berry bear patchouli. It grows everywhere, it controls erosion, it's like a magical plant. Well, the farmer planted vetiver. You can see here the whole row, but the whole row of vetiver is dead, okay? Why? The vetiver is a magical plant. Yeah, but it's still a plant. It needs food, it needs water. So not all conservation practices will do their job in everywhere, okay? So I like that picture because of that. To address the erosion problem that the farmer has in this land coat at the entrance of his farms, you need to integrate different conservation practices to regenerate the conditions in the soil where plants can grow, and then you will have a vegetative cover in this area, and that will be like the permanent solutions. But to achieve that, you need to plan, you need to evaluate, you need to design, and eventually implement several conservation practices and start evaluating those to see which ones are doing their work and which ones no, okay? And I see this in several farms in the mountainous region. Hey, go plant vetiver, plant patchouli, it will solve the problem? No. It's not a magical plant. It needs water and soil to grow, okay? So what's a resource concern? It's a concern related to the conservation of natural resources, okay? And for us, we do a whole farm evaluation with the whole aspect that you can think about natural resources. We don't just look at soil, we look at soil, plants, animals, air, water, energy, and the human factor. The human factor is really, really important. You cannot plant a conservation practices that requires a lot of hand labor if the farmer don't have hand labor. Because how the farmer is going to implement a conservation practice that requires lots of hand labor if he's the only person doing the work on the farm. So you need to have that into consideration. So the resource concerns need to be identified and measured to determine the level of effort that is needed and the number of conservation practices that are required, okay? Not all the resource concerns may be addressed with just one practice. Sometimes you need to add mulch, you need to add organic matter, you need to do nutrient management, you need to do conservation covers to address a situation like the one that I showed you before. It's not just one practice. You need to consider a lot of conservation practices. And if you want to have the ability and the knowledge to do those kind of works, it means that you need to have knowledge of different conservation practices, how to implement those conservation practices, because all of them have different purpose and different requirements, okay? And we in NRCS have more than 200 conservation practices nationwide for engineering, biology, forestry, grazing, agronomy. So there's a lot of them. In the Caribbean, we have more than 150 practices adopted for the Caribbean area. And sometimes we are looking for more conservation practices, okay? So it's a job in progress, okay? And eventually, you just do not identify them, you measure them. And we have different tools in NRCS. For example, we use soil laboratory analysis, like Soli was mentioning before, for different purposes. We do Russell 2. Russell 2 is official tool to measure sheet and reel erosion. You can see sheet and reel erosion, but how do you measure it? Well, we have a tool to measure it and establish a benchmark condition. We have WinPST. WinPST help us identify the resource concern associated with the use of pesticides in the farm. In NRCS, we do not do recommendations for pesticide use. The Agriculture Extension Service do that, right? We mitigate the effects of the use of pesticides, the effects on soil, water, wildlife, and we have a bunch of techniques and conservation practices to address that. We also do field measurements, field observations, and data that is provided by the farmer. Why? Because sometimes you are going to do a recommendation of a conservation practice to a farmer that he already tried in the farm. So in the part of the interview and with the farmer, you need, have you tried this before? Because sometimes farmers have tried things before, but sometimes it didn't work. But why does it didn't work? For example, I used to work as an ag agent in Moca, my hometown, and I had a farmer that planted mucuna. Okay, mucuna is a type of plant that we use as a cover crop. Well, somebody told the farmer that he should soak the seed in water for 2 days and then spread all around the field. Okay? The farmer did what he was told to do. After he spread the seeds in the field, it didn't rain for 2 weeks. So what do you think that happens to all those seeds? They die because they were induced to germinate, but when they were put in the ground, the sun and the dry weather just killed them. So the farmer can tell you, hey, Edric, I don't want to do more cover crops. I tried them once and the plants didn't grow at all. But do you do an evaluation? It's part of the conservation process. Do you did an evaluation to determine why does the seeds didn't grow? Okay, so whenever we have a conservation practice that require the planting of seeds, we always add to the implementation irrigation for 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks, because plants need at least, depending on the species, 2, 4, 6 weeks to develop their roots. Okay, so sometimes it's not that the technology didn't work, it's that the technology wasn't used correctly. Okay, and that's part of the planning process. And based on those resource concerns, is that we identify the best conservation practice to address them and the best logical way to implement those conservation practices in a sequence with the technical support of an agricultural professional, licensed agronomists, TSPs, or agriculture agents. So there's different professionals that can provide support to farmers in the implementation and evaluation of those conservation practices. I'm going to bring you a little story. I love making stories, okay? And part of my formation about being an agronomist is an educator. And when you try to teach to adults listen and love stories, and kids too, okay? So our coffee in Puerto Rico has been going around a lot of centuries now, okay? So, and it's a really important crop for the mountainous region of Puerto Rico, okay? It employs a lot of people in that area, and we need to take care of that industry. And it provides not just work, but it's like a national feeling when you drink coffee of Puerto Rico, right? and a boost of energy too that is required in the mornings. So what happens in this area? This area has really steep slopes in the land, okay? Really steep slopes. When you sometimes when I talk with my colleagues at the 22 states of the eastern region of the United States, and I told them that we do agriculture in a 60% slope, they are like, why? Why do you do that? That's not possible. Yes, in Puerto Rico we do that because sometimes that's the farm that they have. They don't have any other piece of land to do farming. So they need to do the best with what they can have, they can afford, okay? And coffee grows really well in those soils, okay? So we have about 55 to 85 Fahrenheit degrees temperature and lots of rain because coffee needs water, okay? So sometimes you will find location where farmers, due to lack of hand labor, we use heavy machinery, okay, to clean the field. And I say clean like this because that's not cleaning. Cleaning is when you do your stuff in your house. That is not cleaning. But they mention the popular language, they always say, limpié la finca, I cleaned the farm. That's not cleaning, okay? So sometimes they call us when they already do this, okay? So if we find that situation, what is a good way to give back the health to that soil, right, Sueli? What's a good way to give back the health to that type of soils, okay? So we address the resource concerns, soil compaction, soil erosion, loss of organic matter, loss of habitat for soil microorganisms. There's a lot of resource concern that I can identify just by looking to the process that the farmer implemented to remove the original vegetation that was there to establish their coffee farm. But look at this. Coffee trees came from the nursery, and why do you think they call it nursery? When babies are born in the hospital, they go to the nursery too, okay? Because they are taking really good care. They put water and food and are in shady places, so they feel like, oh my God, I don't want to leave this nursery. But there will come a time that the roots will go into the soil, they will start developing more branches, and they need more space. So it's the time for leaving the nursery. But it will not be the same to leave a nursery and be planted in bare soil in the tropical island that we have here. It's hard. And you can estrange the little tree by taking out the shades and leaving it there for 2-3 weeks. But it will not be the same to be at Maricao, at the Junta Solares, San Sebastián, in a bare soil. The stress that you will give that little tree is huge. But we can do something different. And that's where soil health practices come into place, okay? And I mentioned a bunch of them here. You can look at all of them in the field office technical guide. All of them have a name and a number because in NRCS we like to do a standardization of all the implementation practices. And it's important, and you know why? Because we provide service from the eastern point of St. Croix to Micronesia and Palau and the Pacific Islands and Alaska too. So imagine developing a document that needs to be implemented in the 50 states and all the territories. So that's a standard. And all our practices have a standard. Then comes the implementation requirement, a specification, and other supporting documentation, okay? But if you go to the field office technical guide, you can look at all of them, okay? So you need to look at them, understand them, and then learn how to apply them. So we arrive to a farm, the farmer already cleaned the land. So we need to provide the land with something to protect it from soil erosion, organic matter degradation, elevate temperature, increase water infiltration, and not just infiltration, the infiltration and the holding of that water in the soil. So the land was bare soil, nude soil. So we can start by planting shade in that field. And when you think about planting shade, you can think about different types of shades. Permanent shades and temporary shades. But even plants like the perennial peanut that is 6 inches tall will provide a little bit of shade to that soil, will provide a little bit of cover to that soil. And then you can also plant cover crops, okay? And for example, in the rows that you will be planting the coffee trees, you will plant cover crops. Eventually you will terminate them, right? But if you terminate them and leave it as mulch, okay, then you go there, make a little hole and put the small tree. But the small tree will not be going from a nursery to a bare soil and sun. It will grow to an ecosystem that you have already developed. And you will not plant the tree immediately. You will start these conservation practices, give them 3-6 months to grow, and eventually you will get the coffee tree from the nursery and put it in a place that has similar conditions to the nursery, okay? So for the next 2 years, the shade trees will grow, you will manage the conservation cover between the rows, and eventually you will start having a whole ecosystem, okay? With lots of different organisms sustaining the health of the soil. But you do this in a planned way. It's not like plant vetiver and vetiver is great for the coffee. No, vetiver is one practice. You can add it to the system. And the tools that we have help us determine, okay, Edric, I'm going to plant vetiver. Nicolás came to my farm in San Lorenzo and he recommended the use of vetiver. How many rows of vetiver do I need to put in my slope? Well, Russell 2 helps you determine, put at least 3 rows, 1 in the middle, 1 in the bottom, and 1 in the top, or 3 in the middles, or 3 in the tops. Russell help us determine, design the implementation of that conservation practice. And eventually you will have this, okay? A whole system functioning, working, and it's great that we have all of this information and technology to do this. And we do not only provide farmers with technical information, we also have programs that provide them with financial assistance to help them buy the plants, plant them, manage them, okay? So this is our other setting, and we have, this is really common in the Caribbean area, because about 100 years ago, the island was pretty much deforested, right? But those lands that are not in active production, they develop into secondary forests. But sometimes those secondary forests are of some species that are great at arriving to sites and establish, but not in a way that is useful for farmers to do farming, right? So this is a degraded forest land. If you look at it in the satellite picture, you will say this is forest land. But the composition of that forest land is not optimum. So you can do the same, identify the resource concerns, based on those resource concerns, start formulating alternatives and develop those that are best from turning this into this without the use of a bulldozer, okay? And you do a transition, and there's here a transition to farming, organic farming, but this is a transition to regenerative farming, sustainable farming, okay? And we have practiced, like for example this one, forest stand improvement, okay? You do not want to get rid of all the trees, but you need to prune some trees and probably eliminate the little ones or invasive plants that are growing in that area, so you more make a space to establish a nicely done coffee plantation there, okay? We did a trial in the Caribbean area in years 2021, 2022 with Arachis pintoi, it's perennial peanut. There's different species of Arachis, around 80 species in the world. From those 80 species, I'm sure that we have 3-4 in the Caribbean area. But for this trial, we use pintoi as a species, okay? And there's a lot of varieties, especially the University of Florida has done lots of research with perennial peanuts for forage, but they also have a great value for conservation covers because they do a permanent job in the soil. So we do a planting of Arachis between the coffee tree lines and evaluate them for 6 months, okay? To understand how will they develop during that period of time and understand the challenges that farmers confront when they implement those conservation practices. And one of the main concerns is that at first it requires a lot of hand labor, okay? In the establishing, it requires a lot of hand labor. So one of the activities that farmers do is that day they will cook for the people that go to their farm to help, okay? On rice and some chicken, and they will pay people with food, and sometimes with money too, but that's a good way to bring people to help you to your farm. So then we established like 1 square meter observation plot, 3 plots per each field, okay? This is the planting arrangement that we did for that trial. You have the coffee lines. We left a 2 feet border to each side of the tree. So it was like 4 feet without cover. And the space between the rows was covered with the Arachis, okay? We plant the Arachis in a diamond shed pattern, okay? 1 foot by 1 foot. And we wanted to understand several factors. So we did several observations. One of them was by biological diversity, and it was really, really interesting. When we go, this was a farm in Lares. When we go there, the first time, it was coffee with bare soil, and you will see fire ants and worms in the soil, and some algae growing there, bare soil. After 6 months, when we go there again, this is before planting the Arachis, some worms and fire ants. And 6 months after doing that planting, we see the fire ants were there, the earthworm were there, but we also start seeing bees foraging the flowers of the Arachis. We will see fungi growing, millipedes. You can see the birds in the shade trees going down to the Arachis to eat the insects, okay? And springtails, flies, spiders, wasps, a whole, just 6 months. This was bare soil with herbicide every 2 months. And this was a whole setting. And one of the values of this project was asking the farm, do you like it, you don't like it, do you think it's worth it? And this farmer said, hey, Edric, I want to plant my whole farm of this, okay? Because it saw the value, and not just for the soil, the diversity of the soil and all the organisms, but the visual aspect of the farm is totally different. And I will show you more pictures of a farmer in Corozal. he used to work as an agriculture agent, Ramon Martinez, and he has a citrus farm in Corozal, okay? So this is the citrus farm with bare soil, okay? You may see some algae growing in the bare soil, and then if you go there, he likes to receive people. He's a great guy. Then you will see this, okay? So it's not the diversity of the soil and the organisms and the health. It's a completely different farm. And there's where his neighbor lives. And one of the things that he told me is that his neighbor told him, oh, that's a beautiful farm right now. Because that's the balcony of the house. So you go out, we will see the citrus with the bare soil. Now it's like a garden. It's a beautiful place, okay? And Ramon did this on his own, and he keeps doing more and more because he sees the value of transition of using herbicides to using the trimmer, okay? And he still uses a little bit of herbicide to clean the crowns of the trees, but it's two different settings, okay? And that's just one species. So for future projects, and that's one of my objectives today, is to feed the curiosity of the researchers and all the professionals in agricultural science, evaluate different species and lines of Arachis pintoi for shade tolerance and low maintenance. There's papers from Brazil, and they have lines of Arachis that grow really well in heavy shaded areas, okay? So there's a lot of work to be done with that plant species, but there's more need to identify different plant species that are not Arachis, other plant species that can provide a conservation cover with low maintenance, because farmers do not have hand labor. This is a huge problem right now. So if we want to think about plants that provide cover, low maintenance plants, okay? Because there's not much hand labor. New approaches for example, doing plantain in the mountainous region of Puerto Rico. There's new varieties that produce high yields, but after you plant the first bunch, you need to chop them down, pass the tractor again, and plant again. That's not sustainable in a long term, because you will be doing all the time. And plantains eventually will degrade. They have a genetic degradation of the capacity of the plants to produce. But if we can increase from 1 year to 2 to 3 years in a economically way, that will be awesome. And there's a lot of things to be done around, okay? This is my contact information, and again, thank you for the invitation to the agency to participate in today's workshop. We have been a long partner of the University of Puerto Rico, the Agricultural Experimental Station, the Agricultural Extension Service, and the faculty, and we hope to keep working along you for a long time, okay? So thanks.
Thank you, Eric, for that excellent presentation. It was amazing. Now I want to call the next speaker, Adriana Rivera. Come.
Okay.
Right.
Hi,
Be there.
Thank you.
All right, Adriana.
Am I good? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, my name is Adriana Rivera Alejandro. I'm the ag agent in Barranquitas. And let's see if I can get... Okay, yeah, there we go, perfect. And we're going to talk about today about cover crops, one of the many practices that we can incorporate in our farm. And this is a little bit about choosing the right one for you.
So the objectives, first, quickly define what are cover crops, then some factors to consider, things that you need to keep in mind when choosing the right one for you, and talk about a little bit about my field experience with 10 cover crops grown here in Puerto Rico. So, cover crops, quick definition, those are the crops that cover the soil surface and can be added to your cash crop rotation. The main objective of the cover crops is going to be to boost your profits by improving your soil, because as we already heard, you know, soil, that's our base, okay? We need to have a good soil, you know, with a good standing, so we can, you know, get that money and provide food. And application methods, we have several. Green manure, it could be living mulch, it can be added into a rotation either before or after your cash crop, or even in association with your cash crop, and also to be used as forage. So quickly, I know they're not, you know, the superheroes, but they do have the potential to be, you know, like a good employee. And because they provide several services that can affect your soil in the chemical, physical, and biological way. First of all, soil cover. So it's gonna keep that soil covered, and it's gonna help with erosion and water quality protection. Pest management. They have the capacity to suppress nematodes, some of them, and weeds. Organic matter addition, because you have that, you're creating biomass, you can increase that organic matter. And if we increase the organic matter, we already heard there's a ton of benefits, and that includes improving your soil structure. Better soil structure, the water's gonna be running happier, and the microbes are also gonna be happier there too. Reduce soil compaction, also it's gonna work to your benefit, improving water infiltration, and also microbes are gonna be happier too there. Increasing biodiversity, that is the key to everything. We need to have a little bit of everything so we can find that balance. That's gonna create your balance between the pest and also the beneficials, because they will come. And adding nutrients. That's where our legumes come into place as nitrogen fixers. And lastly, to just tighten that nutrient loop so you can recycle and reduce nutrient loss. Because if you have a cover crop, instead of just the bare soil, it can pick up any leftover nutrients from a past fertilization, and just, you don't lose it to the leaching or erosion. Okay, so we do have a lot of, you know, each time we have more information, and you can find a lot of charts like this. This, for example, is a cover crop chart for Hawaii, and it's divided into high elevation, low elevation, and then divides the plants between grass, broadleaf, legumes. It tells you if it's an annual or a perennial. Then we have another chart over there that's from the SADE handbook. It's divided from regional. Cover, top regional, is it Northeast, is it the Middle Atlantic, and it divides them for services. They got a lot of rye, and sorghum, and clover. They like clover. Here, another example. This is a tropical cover crop selection chart, and we see they keep adding some information. For example, if it's drought tolerant, or is it adapted to humidity. It also includes the growth habits. Is it erect? Is it climbing or spreading? Is it used for human consumption or for forage? And over there we have another chart from the USDA, that's for the Great Plains. And again, it divides them grass, broadleaf, and if it's a cool or warm. Remember, the northern part, they do get freezes and all of that stuff. We don't get that. But it is also something to keep in mind. And in that one, they added the relative water use. So you do have to keep that into consideration. How much water does that plant need? We're not gonna leave the vetiver to just die on the bare soil. So these are just some of the questions that you need to keep in mind if you decide maybe a cover crop is a right practice for me. First, availability. Are there any locally sourced seeds around you? Do you have to consider shipping and the availability of the shipping? Not everyone ships to Puerto Rico, for example. And the cost. Not because I'm telling you, oh my God, they're so great, means that you can't afford them right now. So we gotta take that absolutely into consideration. Then some regional needs. So maybe your hardiness zone, do you get a freeze? Do you not get a freeze? Your soil texture, is it more sandy? Is it heavy clayey? Precipitation, do you only get 3 inches of rain during the whole year? That's definitely gonna take into account which cover crop are you gonna be using. And then which service do I need? Of the services that we already explained, do I want soil cover? Do I want pest management, or maybe just adding more nutrients? And if that question, maybe you're not clear yet on which one it is that you need, another way to see that question is, well, what's my problem? In my farm, what am I struggling with? And these are some examples. Some of the main top three problems in my area, in Barranquitas, the mountainous area. And it's nematodes affecting crop yields. Barranquitas is a very agricultural, municipality, and we have a lot of roots and tubers, and nematodes love them. So we deal with that, and we have apio, arracacha. The nematode loves the arracacha, so we struggle with that one. Maybe it's high use of insecticides. Maybe it's just spraying every single week. So, but for that part, you do have to consider the cover crop and the cash crop pests. So, because we can't have the same pest of a cash crop and then the same pest for the cover crop. So we gotta mix it up. And water erosion. Maybe you're struggling with that. So if you can't choose which service it is that you need, maybe ask, what is my problem? What am I struggling with? Other things to take into consideration. The planting. How am I gonna do it? Do we have to do it manually, like feeding the chickens because I don't have any tractors, or because I'm in a 40+ slope? Do I have the manual labor to do that? Also very important. Or is it gonna be mechanical? When am I going to do the planting? Is it before the cash crop? Is it after? Is it gonna be in association? Do I have irrigation access? Or am I gonna wait to see, okay, it's gonna rain, coge el guille de meteorólogo, gonna be a meteorologist for the day and see when can I seed that. And the seeding rates, very important. Gotta check the seeding rates. There's a lot of information out there, so that shouldn't be too hard. And the termination also, how am I gonna terminate it? Do I have a tractor? Am I gonna use a machete? That kind of stuff. And also when. The when is gonna be very important, because maybe you wanna avoid issues with a allelopathic residue, or maybe you're looking for the highest nitrogen production window, because you just want that nitrogen. So that's gonna make a difference on when and how you terminate it. Okay, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the field study and my work with evaluating the germination and adaptability of 10 cover crops in the Lajas Valley. It was a hay farm, so imagine it's just hay, nothing else, just a bunch of hay. It was a soil series fraternidad, so it was a vertisol, a very gorgeous vertisol, you can see over there. And we evaluated 10 cover crops, so we did the legumes, grasses, broadleaf, and brassicas. First of all, we had the legumes. We had sun hemp, cowpea, and velvet bean, and then I added some of the pictures from the friends that visited during this study. Here, the sun hemp, the top pest is the utetesia. It's a little worm over there. The cowpea had a lot of serotoma and leptoglossus, and this is what I mean that you need to take into consideration the pest between the cash crop and the cover crop. Because if your cash crop is, let's say, beans, I'm not gonna do a cover crop of cowpea. You gotta mix it up. And we also did a velvet bean. Okay, so the sun hemp, all of them, of course, legumes, great nitrogen fixers. The results, obviously, the legumes had the highest increase in soil nitrogen after the incorporation, and there was no difference among them. But the sun hemp was really great because it's really high biomass. All of them suppressed nematodes and did really good weed control because of the allelopathic effects, but also, at least for sun hemp and cowpea, they established really quickly, so they can, control those weeds. Sun hemp was really good at attracting pollinators. Bees love them, and all kinds of pollinators too. It gives a really good mulch once you terminate it, and you could visually see that moisture was, it kept the moisture on that soil. But it is susceptible to fusarium, so that's a fungus in the soil. So you gotta keep that in mind and gotta rotate it. You just can't be, okay, I'm married to sun hemp, I'm always gonna plant sun hemp in this predio, in this area. You gotta mix it up. And cowpea also did really good mulch. Oh, and for this example was in Lajas, which is very dry. And we did do, I think it was like at least 5 hours of irrigation. Once they were planted, at least 5 hours of water, irrigation, so they soaked up really well, and we just left them. You gotta work on your own. So next up, we have the grasses, pearl millet and sorghum. So they were the results, actually. They were one of the ones that provided the highest amount of fresh biomass. They do alleviate compaction, and the sorghum's really nice because it suppresses nematodes, but it's a different mechanism. It's because it's a non-host plant. So the nematode can complete its life cycle on those roots. Next up, we have the broadleaves. We have buckwheat. I fell in love with this one. She is the cutest. Sesame and sunflower, and we can see over there another friend that visited, the Diaprepes. But the buckwheat was really good at suppressing weeds, even though it kind of seems like a little frail plant, but it grows really quickly and it just takes over and it doesn't let the weeds grow. It's a short cycle, so it gives you options, because maybe I don't have a lot of time for the other ones. Maybe you need 2.5 months, could be 3 months. With this one, in 1.5 months, cycle's already complete, and you just needed a quick cover, or maybe you really needed to attract the pollinators. Bees loved it, so it's a nice option to have for a short cycle. The sesame suppresses weeds really well and attracts pollinators, again, because of that quick growth. And it also suppresses nematodes for allelopathic effects. And there are actually a lot of commercial nematode killing agents. Because which is the active ingredient, it's the sesame oil. But take into consideration, at least during my field study, it was a little bit affected by waterlogging. It took a beating. Again, it was lajas, it was the rainy season, and it's a very heavy clay soil. So it took a beating, but it bounced back. But just have that in consideration, because if you're in a place with it's heavy clay and it's the rainy season, well, maybe not this one. And the sunflower alleviates compaction. Obviously, it attracts pollinators, but keep in mind another thing to take into consideration, that those seeds are really loved by birds, and that's why you have the little bird over there. And you gotta keep in mind the depth of the planting, because if you do it too shallow, they're gonna see you planting the seeds and they're gonna go behind you eating the seeds. So yeah, that's very important, that depth. But it's good news also, because I told you guys that it was a hay farm, nothing but just hay. And this was like a little oasis. Then you heard all the birds singing and taking on the insects and everything. It was just beautiful. It was, yeah, like a little magical garden. But yeah, be careful, because they love seeds. And the last group is the brassicas, where we had arugula and radish. That's a daikon radish. And they're very well known for alleviating compaction because of that root system. Also weed suppression, again, because of those allelopathic effects. And I think it's really cool, and you can kind of see it in the picture. They haven't grown that much that they can cover the rows, but the rows, you see them in the picture, they're clean, and that wasn't me. So that's them working, on the seeds of the weeds. But also, that's why I told you that you gotta keep into consideration when you terminate, when are you going to terminate a plant and how? Because you don't wanna deal with allelopathic residue. Because if you're doing, for example, these brassicas, and then you terminate them, and then the next day, oh yeah, I'm gonna plant, I don't know, whatever other hortaliza, your cash crop, the seed can be affected by those allelopathic effects, and then you're not gonna have any cash crop. So keep that in mind. So really good at weed suppression, and the radish is also really good for nematode suppression. Part of the results were that they're not really suitable for soils with low permeability, because when we did get that waterlogging in that heavy clay soil, these did not bounce back. The sesame did, they just died. So also something to keep in mind if you live in if you have very, very high clay soils and it's the rainy season, maybe just keep away from these. And well, that's it for my presentation. I wanted to be, quick but precise about it. Here's a really good picture of what the field looked like, the little plots that we had with the 10 cover crops, and also a really cool picture of the roots of a sun hemp grown by one of our farmers in Barranquitas. They're taking in those recommendations. They're planting sun hemp mainly to work with the nematode problem with the arracacha. And yeah, but it's really cool because you can see the really red nodules, that's the nitrogen, being fixed and everything. So, and that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Adriana, for that presentation. It was amazing. Now I want to call the next speaker, Annelies Ramos. It's part of Faculty of Extension, like Adriana. Annelies. All right.
Esto está apagado. ¿Tú lo usaste? No. Ok, pues le doy aquí. Well, good morning. My name is Annelies Ramos Perez. I'm actually the Agricultural Extension Agent for the Sidra and Aguas Buenas Municipality. Today, I will be talking to you about cover crops as biological control of soil pests. So, tropical agroecosystems in Puerto Rico face aggressive soil-borne challenges that traditionally relied on synthetic chemical suppression. This presentation actually is going to highlight a transition from using pesticides to sustainability. A shift in tropical management, the phasing out of toxic and chemical fumigants requires a robust biologically active soil. Soil pest management alternatives. We can use multifunctional cover crops by using specific cultivars to provide green manure while actively releasing suppressive biochemicals into the rhizosphere. Local scientific validation. Decades of trial by the University of Puerto Rico and the Agricultural Extension, Agricultural Experimental Extension provide their efficacy, prove their efficacy against endemic pathogens. So what is the soil pathogen complex in Puerto Rico? So we have a really humid, rainy, heavy heat in the Caribbean. So all of these conditions fuel actually the infestation, so that, example, the root knot and reniform nematodes are being expressed a lot. These pests destroy root systems, for example, of plantains, sweet potatoes, and solanaceous vegetables, just to mention a few, with severely limiting the local crop yields. We also have the fungal and bacterial soil pathogens, which crop face soil-borne fungal roots like Fusarium, Rhizoctonia, and Sclerotium, being the last one really important in the crop of Jautia, which thrive in humid soils. Additionally, the bacterial wilt pathogen Rhizoctonia has been proven to decimate, example, sweet pepper or tomato varieties, being solanaceous crops, remaining persistent in island soils for years. So what are the objectives for today? So the problem we have in the Caribbean is that soil pests affect all of our crops and our gardens too. The alternative is using natural control with plants, and we're gonna be talking about specifically about cover crops. And the approach is that we're gonna go inside the soil, and we're gonna be talking about from the roots and the soils. So what are soil pests? So soil pests are organisms that live below the surface and actually attack the roots of our crops. The problem is that they directly damage the roots, weakening the entire plant and hindering its growth. So I like to say it's like you have something, just sticking in your feet, and they start bugging you until they eventually make you fall. So here we're gonna be concentrating about two different types of soil pests, which are the nematodes, and we also have the pathogenic fungi and bacteria And I like to remark that they are all endemic to tropical soil, so they actually live here. The importance of natural control. So we can move to reducing the use of toxic chemicals in our fields. We can also help protect biodiversity. The colleagues before me have spoken a lot about this. It improves ecosystem health and also let us move or transition to what sustainable agriculture is. So how do these plants work? Well, they function primarily through natural chemical processes. They release chemical compounds which produce allelopathy or inhibit pest development at all. Some of them act as biofumigants and as they decompose. I'm going to be talking about a little bit more of that on the next slides. And they also attract beneficial organisms. So like they all mentioned before, you're looking for an ecosystem. You're just not looking for one crop, you're looking for the whole picture. Some of the advantages I can mention is that it's ecological because we're actually working with plants. Low cost. So like Adriana mentioned, at the beginning, maybe it's an inversion and you have to get money to buy the seeds and not necessarily they're available or they ship it to Puerto Rico or you can find it here. So at the beginning, it's gonna be an inversion you have to make, but you can always think that if this is a practice you wanna do on the long run, first it's gonna build you up soil health through the years. So it's gonna build your soil through the years. And also if you're a producer, you can actually just maybe say, okay, so I'll just save half a cuerda or a cuerda just to produce my own seeds, so I don't have to keep buying them from the outside, and you can complete like the whole cycle in your farm. So that's something to take into consideration. It improves biodiversity, and until now, it's proven to be safe for humans and animals. I'm gonna ask a quick one about that, because I'm not really sure if, for example, mucuna has been shown to be a little bit toxic to the ganado. I think I heard about the seed pods. Maybe if they eat the seed pods, you can maybe...
I know sun hemp is.
Sun hemp? Yeah, okay. Thank you. So the cover crops. I actually choose 6 cover crops, which I know very well because they were part of my thesis for being a soil scientist. So I'm gonna be talking about 6 of them, which actually have proven investigations in Puerto Rico. You can look for the information and you can see how these plants are actually used for nematode suppression. They have allelopathic compounds, and they also help you with fungi and bacteria in the soil. So the first one is crotalaria, which is like an alkaloid barrier. We're gonna be talking about specifically about crotalaria huncea. It has been tested broadly at at the university and the agricultural stations and Isabela and Lajas. My project was in Isabela and casually Adriana's was in Lajas. So the sun hemp roots produce active, like you can say an active ingredient, which is monocrotaline. It's an alkaloid highly toxic to root knot and reniform nematodes. When incorporated as green manure, the increased microbial activities decompose some fungal structures, suppressing soil-borne fusarium and pythium complexes. So these are actually fungi in the soil. This rapid legume can produce massive organic biomass over 2.4 tons per hectare in tropical soils to rapidly build up biological suppressiveness. So it's actually one of the best ones you can use, but like Adriana said, you have to take into consideration where are you located and if it's the right one for you after you do all the assessment. But this one can actually help you, like we are focusing right now, under the soil, but it also has some benefits above the soil. So it can work for you on both scenarios. The other one is Canavalia, which is actually a fungus and nematode shield, Canavalia ensiformis. And I'm doing the whole scientific names because we have a different varieties of these plants. This one was actually evaluated on the local SARE project back in 2017, which was intercrop with Maricongo plantain. So it actually showed that it can help with the nematodes in the soil. It contains concanavalin, a natural biocereal lectin. So a lectin is actually an organic compound that uses the sugars and then transform it to work as a, se me fue la palabra. Uses the sugar and then has it shows like allelopathic effect on the soil. It also suppresses the pathogenic burrowing Rhadophilus similus, which is actually a nematode, and also some other root knot nematodes, which already live in the tropical clay zones. Composting and green manuring studies show significant suppressive effects on root rot fungi, specifically Phytophthora and Fusarium. Those are some of the worst we can have in our fields because it actually can decimate a whole crop. The other one is Mucuna, which works an allelopathic fungicide. Mucuna pruriens. It has been studied in soils in Isabela. Velvet bean roots synthesize and exude immense concentrations of, I'm just gonna tell you right here, L-DOPA, which is like the active ingredient. So what happens is that those exudates actually help with the root knot nematodes and severely restrict the growth of fungi. So it actually works, with the nematodes and also the fungi at the same time. Local trials indicate significant suppression also of Rhizoctonia solani and Sclerotium rofsi in organic vegetable systems, but also the Sclerotium rofsi is the one that attacks the yautía, and it gives the mal seco de la yautía, which is actually one of the things we fight when we have yautía crops on the island. The other one is sorghum, which is a bacterial and fungal enemy. This one works a little, the mechanism it's a little different because it works when you actually incorporate it into the soil. So the roots exude sorgolene, which strongly suppresses with germination and parasitic nematodes, but also when you incorporate it mechanically, the leaves contain a cyanogenic glucoside called durin. So that's like a cianuro, right? Like the gas. So when incorporated into the soil, the durin hydrolyzes and releases natural hydrogen cyanide gas. So it's like you're in a chamber being, with that gas. So it works that way. This process biofumigates the soil drastically, reducing the populations of Ralstonia, which is the bacterial wilt. We have a lot of that also in our soils, and Pythium. This one, I like this one, and it's the Cajanus cajan, which is the gandul. I almost forgot the name. It's a classic Puerto Rican staple crop studied by the university for its soil health effects. Its deep roots physically fracture the dense tropical clay layers. So the roots can help you, like if it was stealing the soil, And their roots also extrude cajanol, which is a phenolic compound that actively inhibits the germination of fungal spores. It's highly effective also suppressing fusarium, which is a fungus, and reducing the reproduction rates of root knot meloidogene, which are nematodes. And we have here the last one, which is daikon radish, and it's a isothiocyanate sterilizer. And when I was searching, there's not a lot of information about the daikon, el nombre rábano, radish. The radish being used as a biofumigant in Puerto Rico, but it's actually the best work of action you can do, you know, just like incorporating in the soil. In my project back in 2017, we actually incorporated in the soil, but we weren't able to measure that because we were not looking for that information. So when I was doing, you know, the research, I think this one has a really good potential of being incorporated, not only radish, but the brassicas, like col, mustards, and the mustards, for example, grow really fast. So it says here it was trailed in the cooler highland soils because it needs a cooler climate to be growing, but actually we had a lot of success with it in Isabela, and it's, you know, like a coastal, almost coastal environment. It accumulates extreme levels of glucosinolates. So this is the active ingredient. When you actually shred that heavy taproot and mix it with the soil, it releases a volatile isothiocyanate, which is like the next phase of the glucosinate, and it destroys bacterial and fungal cells membranes. In the US, this biofumigation, it's been used a lot. So that's why I say that here in Puerto Rico is actually like a maybe something we can study more. It exhibits exceptional natural suppression against Ralstonia, which is the bacterial wilt. Like I said, we have that a lot in our soils. And the soil-borne fungal roots like Rhizoctonia. This is a bacteria, and then this is a fungus. So in this table, I have like a resumen, summary. Thank you so much. So I have the summary of how these cover crops actually work. So you have the cover crop, you also have which is the target nematode it actually helps you with. And if it also has like bacteria or fungi that can help you. And when it says primary chemical pathway, it's like I told you, it's like the active ingredient the plant has that works to help you with the nematodes and with the bacteria. The limitations. So this will not eliminate the pest 100%. It requires planning. Like Adriana said, or Edric, you cannot just think of one magical plan that is going to solve you all the problems. You have to take different approaches and study, and also where you are located. Because she said, for example, the sesame, you had troubles with it. I also used sesame in Isabela, and it worked great. So it was a good crop to grow there. And it shows lower results than chemicals, but you have to think to the long term. It may be at the beginning, it's not gonna get you the results you want, but if you start, doing these practices and building up that soil health, there's gonna be a point that the soil is just gonna be like a circle, and it's gonna be able to like recycle those nutrients and help, do all the the cycle from start to the end. Some practical recommendations is that you have to choose cover crops suitable for the climate. I just kind of mentioned that. Maintain diversity. It doesn't mean that I show you 6. It's not that you have to use just one. You can actually mix them. And it depends on what you want to get off the soil. And you need to figure out if you want to do it, salud. If you want to do it like before, or you want to do it intercropping, because they're going to have effects that are different. You have to observe the ground constantly. Maybe you think that cover crop is going to work in your field, and then you put the seed, and you did all the things to care for it. You bring it water, it has nutrients, and the plant is just not thriving. Maybe it's not the one for you. And you can definitely combine methods. That is my hand in 2017, and I had there 10 different cover crops, and the trials we did was actually to just mix them all up to see how they work together. So in conclusion, cover crops don't directly are gonna eliminate, the pathogens, but they are definitely gonna change the soil environment. They are able to release microbial compounds that can help you, with the nematodes or the fungi or the bacteria. And they're actually also gonna promote beneficial bacteria, and I should have said they're also beneficial microorganisms in the soil. As a result, the harmful fungi, bacteria, and nematodes are gonna lose their competitive edge. So you're gonna make it harder for them to just be in your crop. So cover crops can be a very effective tool for protecting crops from the root up. They're a sustainable alternative that contributes to soil health and the environmental care. I put that photo on purpose because that was the last photo I put on my thesis project. That's how I summarize everything, so I did it today just for, remembering that time Julia, Dr. O'Halloran, and I, we were at the field fighting everything and everyone against us doing that project. So thank you very much. Those are the references and information. I work for the Agricultural Extension agent. I work as an agricultural extension agent, and like I told you at the beginning, my office is at Sidra. Thank you.
Thank you, Annalise, for that presentation. It was amazing. I wanna to say come here, the fourth speaker, to see it if we have any question or something. Dr. O'Halloran, come on.
Well, I have a question for each. I want each one of you to just answer this question. I mean, the workshop. The workshop was not only for Puerto Rico. It was also to address any problems that they have in the United States Virgin Islands. So many of the practices and plans and that you have talked about here in this presentation today, in this workshop, it focuses on Puerto Rico. So if each one of you could answer, how can we approach these same practices, but referring to the U.S. Virgin Islands, since they have slightly different soils and slightly different climate than we have?
Thank you for your question. For me, farming in the United States Virgin Islands is different in many ways, related to things like, for example, water availability. Water availability in Puerto Rico is a problem, but in the United States Virgin Islands, water availability is really severe problem. And sometimes farmers plant like 1,000 meters of an acre because they don't have enough water to plant the whole acre. So sometimes they plant what they can irrigate, okay? So that's a different way of seeing farming. But relating to soil health practices, we as NRCS provide service to the whole 3 islands. And one of the things that I'm planning to do is having a trip to St. Thomas. And so farmers in St. Thomas and St. John and have more access to technical information and do some workshops there. And I know that Dr. Amy DeBreeze from the Extension Service from USBI is working from several colleagues from Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And that's a way that we need to work, strengthen our relationships, because we are both United States islands, and we have programs in common like land-grant universities, extension services. So that's develop these key relationships to address the needs of the farmers in USBI will be one way to approach those needs that they have over there, and celebrating seminars and workshops that the one we have today in English, because English is the main speaking language there, also address those barriers, the language barrier.
I could add that one of the approaches could be evaluating the resources that are located in Virgin Islands. For example, weeks ago I was visiting a farmer in St. Croix, and one of the things that he was mentioning is, I would like to do more compost. And although here in Puerto Rico doing vermicompost could work because we have higher humidity, then in the area that he was located in the south of St. Croix, it was a drier area. So instead doing vermicompost with earworm, he was working with gongoli. So Lucas is very know because he is making compost instead like using the traditional approach that we could use here. Then he adapted the approach to the things that work in his area. So one of the things is considering alternative, like if something works well in one location, then as Annalise was mentioning, then it doesn't secure you that will work in another area, but then you can look for other alternative and options.
Well, what's nice about the factors is that it can kind of, consider all the aspect, all the spectrum of what we need to know and what we can and don't have. Because if you're in the States and there you have to take into consideration, is it cool, is it warm, termination. Maybe you don't need a machete or anything because it just, the first freeze and that's it. That's your termination. So there are a lot of resources over here. I feel like in the tropical area, we have so much more potential on just investigating, different options and different approaches. So it's not just very limiting in the how and the why and the when, but yeah, there are good options over there.
So being, like I talk about the cover crops, going through that tangent line, the cover crops we use were all brought to Puerto Rico. But then when Eric talked about the coffee and the Arachis pintoi, that's actually a plant that grows in Puerto Rico naturally. So it has been adapted. So I think maybe in the U.S. Virgin Islands, we can find plants that are actually endemic or native to the whole ecosystem and can work towards their goal. For example, they want to do the cover crops, which they have an impact on maintaining humidity if you have low water, or building up that soil health. Maybe they already have plants that they don't know that they can use to that purpose. So I think that investigating the resources that they have it's key to developing that area.
All right. Thank you for the panels. Something else, if we have a question, the people that are online, this is the moment. If not, we want to say thank you for the speaker and thank you for being connected.
Thank you all.